Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, it's day 2 of me refinishing the table for the kitchen, and we got it sanded down and stained yesterday. It looks pretty nice, and today we're going to do the acrylic coating on it that will protect it over the years. So let's get going with that. But before we do that, I want to show you something. No, not that. You've seen that before. So this is the restained table that we did last night. All along I've been kind of thinking that this was oak, and the truth is yesterday when I was pulling it out here, I was actually looking at the underside of it, and was a little confused by what I saw, because this doesn't look like oak on the underside. It looks like particle board, something they call MDF. It's hard like that, but it looks like it's completely manufactured. So I was looking at the side of it, trying to figure out, okay, well, they got oak on the top, but this particle board on the underside. I was trying to figure out how they had this all bonded together, and I said, is there some thin little layer of oak on the top of the particle board? And then I started looking at where some of the areas where I sanded, and it turns out that this is not oak. This is just particle board, and they formed this pattern in it to make it look like it's actually oak. But you know, if I in a couple of the places here that I sanded a little too deep, I went through the finish and got to the particle board underneath. So you know, I just spent a whole bunch of time sanding down and staining a piece of MDF. Yeah, well, that's okay. It's still gonna look nice. Most of the pattern looks good, and we're just going to continue on with the project. But it kind of made me laugh, because this is literally the first time I've really ever looked at this table from a perspective of how was it built. Because I've always kind of been intrigued by the pattern in it, because you know, there's different layers in different regions, and you know, these two sides here appear to be largely mirrored, which implies that they cut a slice of wood in half and folded it over that way. And it's the same over on that side. And there's all these little square inlays all the way around. I said, you know, it's actually some pretty nice work, but yeah, no, that's all just molded in here. They probably just punched out a bunch of these that all look alike and stained them, and you didn't even know. So, I don't know, like I said, I thought that was kind of funny. I kind of feel like I've been made a fool of a little bit, but like I said, it's a good kitchen table, and we're going to finish it up and make it look nice. Alright, we're back in the garage. We're ready to start doing the polyurethane coating on my MDF table here. And this is the stuff I'm going to use. I've used this stuff before. It's a water-based polyurethane. I've tried some of the oil-based ones in the past, and they don't work that well, I think, because it takes too long for them to dry between layers. You know, this thing, you put this on here, and in an hour you can put another coat on. If you do the oil-based polyurethane, I find it kind of sometimes takes like days before you can do the next coat, and I kind of like getting this stuff done pretty quick, and I do like the results I get from this. So this is what we're going to do, and basically we're just going to put a nice even coat over everything. We're going to follow the grain pattern as much as possible, so we'll be going this way on these parts, this way, you know, following the grain on this, so this way on this one, this way on this one. Probably doesn't matter that much, but the reason for following the grain pattern, even in a case of an artificial grain like this, is because then you tend to get the polyurethane in the little gaps that end up in the wood that form the pattern. And if you go the other way, you tend to get bubbles in it, and it just doesn't look as good. So even though this isn't really oak and it doesn't really have a real wood grain pattern, we're going to treat it the same way. So I'm going to get going with that. We're going to probably put several coats on this, so this will be an all-day project with like an hour to dry between each layer. So in order to make sure I don't glue the halves together, I've actually pulled the table apart now, and we're going to do each of the 3 parts as separate parts. Otherwise, like I said, you end up getting the polyurethane coating into the gap, and when you push it together, then it glues it together and it makes it really hard to get apart. So I pulled this thing apart so that we could get at it in a more smooth manner like that. Alright, we got the first coat on here. We're going to let this dry for about an hour, and then we'll put the second, third, and perhaps fourth coat on here. I'll catch up with you in a little bit. All right, we've let this thing dry for about an hour now, so it's ready for another coat. It's pretty smooth at this point, or pretty dry at this point. Now, oftentimes when you're dealing with new wood, after the first layer of the acrylic coating, you're going to have to hit it with a fine sandpaper, because the wood tends to breathe a little bit when it's new and when it's young. Now, this is neither new or actually wood, so I don't have to do that this time. But if you're doing this on fresh wood, the first coat or two, you're going to have to sand it off with a fine grit sandpaper just to get the little bubbles, because as the air kind of comes out of the wood, it creates little bubbles, and then those little bubbles dry and it creates an uneven texture on the wood. But like I said, since this is neither new or actually wood, we're gonna skip that step and move on to the next coat. All right, that's the completion of the second coat. It looks really shiny right now, but like I said, it'll dry a little bit and lose a little bit of its luster over the next hour. But when we get a couple more coats on this, this thing's gonna really pop. So we're gonna let this dry for another hour or so, and then I'll catch up with you then. All right, that's 2 layers applied and dried and pretty good and ready to go now for the next layer. Starting to have a little bit of gloss now. It actually shows up better on the camera than it does in real life. So while it looks all right now, especially under the glaring lights that I have in here, it's going to look a lot nicer, a lot glossier when I get another coat or 2 on. So let's get going with that. All right, that's 3 layers on now, still a little damp, so we're gonna let it dry off a little bit. Starting to shine a little bit now, which is what we should expect. Like I said, I'm gonna probably do at least 1 more coat on this, because first off, it makes it look really nice when it's really glossy, and this is a glossy finish that I'm putting on it. But also it provides a layer of protection for the MDF that's underneath. So like I said, I want this to last for a while. It's a cheaper table than I thought it was when I took it apart, but it still looks pretty nice, and I think I can still get a few more years out of it. So we want to make it last as long as possible and make it look nice and hold up to hopefully many more years of use. But like I said, we're going to let this dry now for probably another hour. We'll hit it with another coat or 2 or 3 or whatever feels right, and then we'll be done with this. All right, so that's the finished product on the 3rd coat. Starting to look really kind of glossy now, and that's what we want. I am going to put at least 1 more coat on this thing, because like I said, I want it to really pop, and I also want it to have all of the protection that you get from multiple coats, so that little stains or whatever don't work their way through the wood. The more coats you get on it, the more you got between you and the wood, or in this case the MDF, and that's what we want. So I'll catch up with you in a bit and we'll go from there. All right, so I finished up the 4th coat and actually applied the 5th coat also. So I think we're pretty much done with this. I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit. We're gonna pull it back into the house, and that should end up this vlog for today. So I don't usually use the leaf in the middle, so I'll put that back in the closet in case I need it. But I wanted it all to kind of match, so that if I did need the leaf, it did look like it belonged there. And so that's why it sort of made sense to do that one, even though I don't usually use it. So anyway, that is how you refinish a table. I think it looks pretty good, for a piece of MDF, which kind of surprised me at the beginning. But you know what? Whatever. It looks pretty good. I think we're done. I think it's going to look nice in the house. And I think that's all that I have for today. So thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.